Have you heard the term schema, server, database, tabular model, fact table, and all of this look confusing, or you're trying to understand the whole concept of SQL, or how do you analyze your data better? In this video, I'm going to be talking about the major things you need to understand before going into deep into SQL. First of all, welcome to my cyberspace. Now, a lot of times when you are trying to analyze a data, especially if your data is in SQL Server or it's in a form of a database, you are probably trying to have a better understanding of data in itself. And in this video, I'm going to be talking to you about like the popular database, which is the AdventureWorks. The first thing first, if you're working with any particular data, which is going to be like in different tables, is you want to understand what is the origin of the data source in itself. And I just want to share to you the AdventureWorks database, which we are going to be using as a project for this. In the previous video, I've spoken about how you can install SQL Server, and also how you can load in the AdventureWorks database. In case you don't have that, go back to the previous video and get to watch that. So what is the AdventureWorks database in itself? Now let us have a better view of the AdventureWorks database. So what you could see on my screen, this is called a schema. If you notice, it's called a schema. And let me just quickly open up my AdventureWorks database, which, let me open up my SSMS first of all, so that you can see my AdventureWorks database. At this point, I would assume you should have SSMS installed already, so it's just going to be the default. Just going to click on it. And for this project and the subsequent videos, I will be focusing on the AdventureWorks 2012 and that's probably one of the old version of the AdventureWorks, which I assume a lot of people would have. So first few things is, when we open up the AdventureWorks 2012, we would scroll to if you click on database diagram, you might not be able to see the database diagram. We just need to click on the tables. We see that we do have a lot of tables here. If you're working for like a proper organization, you will notice that you have a lot of tables. So the things I want to talk about today is a model you can use when you actually have different tables, or you are actually asked to analyze the data and the stakeholder is asking you questions. So what do you need to do? First of all, the first few things you need to do is to understand the data source or how they are related. Most of the times when we have data in our database, there's some form of relationship or connection, and it might be very stressful yourself having to open each of these tables one after the other and starting to make sense of how things are related. Sometimes you might work in an organization whereby there's proper documentation where you can say, oh, this is where this information is, and sometimes you might have to ask your colleague that have been working in the organization before to give you like the full information. Or whichever the case is, I would assume there might be like a schema, and that's what we want to work with, that assumption. So because of we want to work with the assumption as a schema, so we are going to have a better understanding of this AdventureWorks schema in itself. So all of these tables, if you notice, some of the things you would see here is you will see this DBO, you will see this human resources department. So this is the schema that they do belong to, and so this is like sort of related. So we see this is person dot this, we see production dot this. So this is giving us an insight that these tables are sort of related, and these sales tables are sort of related. So let's go to like a diagram of like what this looks like. This was gotten online. If you just typing up on Google AdventureWorks schema, you would find a version of this. I know this is a little bit very detailed, but we are not going to be going into details of this. So what is this trying to say? This model in itself, sometimes you would see that there's something we call tabular model, there's something we call tabular model, and there are different type of model out there. But most times when we say a tabular model, it means that we have a fact table and we have a dimension table. A fact table, I might not be able to give a perfect example in this video, but a subsequent video I will talk about that, is where you have like majority of the information, and the dimension table is used to link to the fact table. You may also get to hear terms like foreign key and primary key. If you notice, you will see PK here, you will see FK here. So the FK here means the foreign key and the PK means the primary key. The primary key is an ID in a particular table that is that's like is a major ID, or is a major kind of unique identifier in a particular table, while the foreign key is like more like the primary key in a different table. So let's give an example of this. So we see that this arrow is pointing to the primary key here is sales orders ID. So let's see if we do have a foreign key here. So this is salesperson ID. So if I try to expand this, we would see that we do have salesperson. So this is it. So we do have salesperson ID is here. Then it also says that salesperson ID is here. So this is a foreign key. So we see how, so the primary key here is for this table is the Salesforce ID. Why the one of the foreign keys that is here is the salesperson ID. So we see salesperson ID. We see that these tables are related, right? It just depends on what table we want to look at. So in case we want to look at this is this table right here. So it says salesperson ID, and I see that salesperson ID is here. So what it's just trying to say is that when you see foreign key primary key, but most of the time it's just saying, okay, if I want to link this table with this table, this is like the ID that I would use. So let's say there's a question that asks that I need to get information from two tables together. So you will use the keys as an information. So if you want to know, okay, what is the primary key or the foreign key? Primary key is more about like, okay, this key or this ID is the main owner of this key in itself. Why that key in a different table is like the foreign key. I hope that sort of makes sense. Another thing also you need to be aware of is this is a bunch of like schemas. So when you see this coloring, let me make this small. So this is a little bit fancy color related. So all of these, they are in the same schema, sales tables, they're together. So this is the human resources table, this is the person table, and let's have a perfect understanding of the AdventureWorks in itself. So the AdventureWorks is created by Microsoft with an hypothetical like business that doesn't exist, that sells bike and other like accessories related to bikes, and they have like branches across like different continents in Asia, in North America, and it's like a typical organization where you have like the employer, you have the customer, you have the HR, you have sales data. So one of the things as you're working with a particular data set is to have a bigger picture. So when a stakeholder asks you for a particular report, or you're trying to get a report, you need to see it from like, what is this actual reporting in itself? What is business? When we have this mindset, you would not just see your analysis as something you run in silos. And when we'll be working on subsequent videos or practical projects, you would have understanding, okay, this is why we are creating this type of questions. So think of it as though you are working for a real company. Even though this is going to be a practice project, you are working for a real company that sells bike, and we have different branches, and you also have different departments, and there are some requests that will be related to you having to understand data. So one of the things you want to do for yourself is, and this link for this schema is going to be attached for you to look at. Try to study this schema well. The color coding is very beautiful. You could see how the tables are related, but let's just do a quick example of how the tables are related. So we see right here, let's just do a very quick one. So in the sales order table, so we see that the salesperson, how they are related is with the salesperson ID. So salesperson ID and also salesperson ID is also right here. So let's go to our data. So we just try to open up this. We open up salesperson. So this is salesperson. So for you just have to click on the table, you right click, then select top 1000. When you select top 1000, I could see that my major key here is, so I have a key here called business entity ID. So the table I opened is the salesperson. Let me go back so that we can see this. So the salesperson is right here. So where's that? So it just depends on whatever you want to, and we can go to a different schema. So you could go to a different one and say maybe sales reason. So this is one of the things you can do. Just keep like opening up your table and see, okay, how how are they sort of related and all of that. So that's the end of this video. In the next video, we are going to really be talking about like how to understand your table better. So we're going to be going into details as to like, you know, each of these like tables, like how do we first of all even get to see the table. So this video, the purpose was for you to see like how that might have different tables, but there's a way they are being linked together, and that's going to help you even when you work on your personal projects. In case this video was a value for time, do also subscribe, like, and follow, and check out the next video. Ciao, bye.